Hey everyone, welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, an audio podcast. Got a really special guest on today. He joined Pentagram's New York office as a partner in 2010. He was born in Wandsworth, London in 1972. He studied graphic design at London College of Printing at Yale University, where he received his MFA in 1997. He began his career as a designer at ATG and Imaginary Forces and worked as a senior designer and art director at 2x4 before establishing his own studio, the Map Office, in 2005. Please join me in welcoming and celebrating Eddie Opera. Welcome.
Thanks, Thomas. Pleasure to be here today.
Are you ready for 20 questions?
I'm ready.
Great. Question one, tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do?
Well, I am a graphic designer. Um, I think it's important to identify oneself clearly in that specific area. Um, that's what I was educated um, throughout my undergrad and grad education, and I continue to do that today. To expand upon that just a little bit, what graphic design really is to me is that I'm also a generalist in that specific area, meaning that I cover a lot of mediums within that subject matter, editorial, book design, environmental, spatial design, interactive web design, um, and branding, and much, much more. So I think that's really sort of important to me that I work in the intersections of those specific areas and also the intersection of strategy and technology.
Great. And just a quick note for the audience, if you guys are interested in the Pentagram partner episodes, please check out our recent episode with Natasha Jen. Question two, what's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
I think it's really about how I consider what a problem really is and whether there is a problem. I've been cited by saying I don't believe in the fact that designers, and I'll look at it from a general perspective, don't necessarily solve problems. They're not so much problem solvers. And I think that that is very much a sort of a different area of understanding about um, my profession and where I think we should sort of focus our attentions. And so, you know, I think that uh, it's really important to um, gauge what I'm saying. And I think that the likes of Steve Jobs, let's put it in his perspective, sort of reinforces what I'm interested in about design, right? And so he had this particular quote. He had this sense of like a man's ability is as a tool maker is to fashion a tool that can amplify an inherent ability that he has, right? And so what he's basically stating here is, and I'm sort of paraphrasing here, is that um, we're we're sort of exactly thinking where we're sort of basically fashioning what we're doing is, you know, for example, is like fashioning a 21st century sort of bicycle here, right? Let's put it this way, right? Where which can sort of amplify an inherent intellectual ability that man has and really take a lot of the drudgery to free people to do more creative work. And so what he's basically stating here is that, and others have argued this, other philosophers and other thinkers and critical thinkers have argued this, is that we truly don't solve problems, but rather transform and reframe them
Mm,
or live with them, right? Um, and that's, you know, that's exceedingly important. So if you're sort of looking at philosophers or thinkers that are considering this, the great Wittgenstein thought about that, basically said that we really don't solve problems, and it looked at it from the way that Steve Jobs looked at particular things, and the likes of Thomas Kuhn, an American historian and philosopher, also looked at it. He said we don't solve problems but shift paradigms, right?
mm,
And so the problems are often redefined rather than resolved. Okay, and so I think that that's one of the things that is a blocking point for designers. That's like, I'm always solving a problem, and it's like, actually you're kind of not, right? And I think that that's something I sort of differ from my own um, colleagues, as it were, cohorts.
mm,
Um, and I also think in systems, whether it be expressive systems, whether it be structured systems. I think systems are exceedingly important for the ability to build upon narrative and knowledge of a particular project that one is dealing with, right? That you're sort of aware of building out something which is you could sort of consider a living system, a potentially living system, where you've built you could say the DNA building blocks of those particular things, and you're handing them over, and that is now this living aspect that other people are going to interact with and build from and expand upon. And it's always lovely to see when that's actually done really, really well. So, you know, building systems is, I think, a really great thing. Yeah.
perfect. Question three, why this of all things? Why do you do what you do?
Why do what I do? It's a sort of an instinctive thing, really. As a kid, um, your parents sometimes would observe you and say, you could be a great lawyer, you could be, this or that. I remember watching Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom and saying, I want to be an archaeologist, right? Without just doing anything. I just felt that looks really good. Um, but I think it was really the sort of subconscious um, activities that I would do on a day-to-day basis, just draw, right? And I would draw all the time. My mother would shut me up at church with a piece of paper and a pencil for many years. So I was very restless. And I think, it sort of grew into that, going on vacation to Nigeria, to see my father, who worked there. Um, I would draw, caricatures that I would see in the sort of Time magazine or different magazines, or even the bottles on different soda bottles, and I would actually draw the actual brands, the graphics, again and again, and I didn't know what I was doing. I think, oh, that's nice. I want to draw that. I would draw type, and I didn't know what I was doing until very late on. Well, I don't know if it was late on, but um, you could say I think I was 17, 18 years old, where a friend of mine said, and at the time I was thinking of being an architect, say that's absolutely rubbish. Look at how you draw. You should look at graphic design. And it was just, innately obvious at that moment in time, he was right. And he's a great friend today.
Beautiful. Some people struggle with number four, and the question is, what does your future look like?
What does anybody's future look like? I mean, it's depends upon the conditions, right? That you set, right, for yourself. Um, and the people around you set for you, and then out and your family and and your community and your local government and your state government and your federal government. And these are all conditions that really sort of truly adjust the way of what your future lies. A lot of people say it's in your hands. You could say that is, fairly true, but there's always things that will sort of, there's always curveballs that will sort of hit home. And I think that um, to be a little bit more specific, and I don't want to be overly nebulous here, um, it's really for me to sort of um, bridge two continents, bridge the idea of my adopted home, which is the United States. I've been here nearly 30 years. Since I was 22, going to Yale. Um, and and also back in Europe. Um, and perhaps even you know, um, Africa as a continent, or more so Nigeria. And I feel as though where the future lies for me is looking at it from the aspects of how design could be utilized through the aspects uh, of visualizing and helping communicate the aspects of civic life, aspects of sustainability, sense of justice, sense of cultural elevation and aspiration. I think that that is exceedingly important, but also how can it work from a governmental point of view, and also how can it work from a commercial point of view? I think that's really important. So I think that's where my future lies, being able to sort of push away from the United States a little bit more, really embracing Europe again, and also the likes of Nigeria and Africa.
Perfect. Five we say is unique to this show. The question is, let's talk about location. How does the notion of place play into what you do?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting sort of question. I was like, thinking about this a little bit more, that and at first I didn't really think that I understood the question, and but then I was like, okay, maybe I can look at it from this type of standpoint about the ideas of placemaking, right?
Mm,
And the importance of placemaking, and for I've started to work on more projects that deal with the sense of place and the importance of place, and how one actually sort of um uh, you know the idea of placemaking really sort of capitalizes on local community needs, right?
mm,
From the aspects of it, from a civic aspect, or from commercial aspect, from a personal aspect. And it needs to be really inspiring, and it has to have sense of potential, and it's there to promote and in an enduring way, and attract um, a sense of inclusiveness, accessibility, the sense of happiness, the sense of well-being, right? And it's really the collaboration with community that makes everything oh so different. And this can come in all shapes and sizes. And I think that that is sort of important to sort of be able to realize, right?
mm,
So, right, I've been working with the likes of Grace Farms, which everybody should really look up, gracefarms.org, for many years. I think for like 13 or 14 years of work with them. They're in Connecticut. They're an amazing organization dealing with nature, social justice, spirituality, sense of art. But building community is really important, but also projecting that out to other communities around the world, and within different types of really positive initiatives. But then also an entirely different kind of placemaking proposition with working with uh, the likes of Arab and the New York Port Authority to build out the new New York Air Terminal, right? Which is the largest in the will be the largest in the United States, and that will be launched next year. So there's all these, and the importance of building community around that, and the aspects of how that's going to not just serve people that are coming into New York or coming out of New York, but also the local community in Queens as well, right? That is also important. Yeah.
Great. So you're starting from the beginning. What advice do you give your former younger self?
Um, yeah, I think it's really more about understanding what trust is.
Mhm.
Have a deeper understanding of what trust really means. And I think it's really more of how you provide the aspect of trust and how people can trust in you, but also the other way around, how how can you trust specific clients per se, right? Or even other designers, to be absolutely honest, and who you're actually collaborating. And I think that's a really important factor that we need to uh, focus on. I think the idea of um, being conceptual also is very, very important, right? Being a very good conceptual thinker, right? Not just a doer, but a thinker, and being able to craft that out in visual concepts, but also writing, right? And I think that what I would do is go back and say, really keep that going, put even more work into that area because you're going to need it because there's certain technologies that are coming around the corner, my dear little boy, that are going to change the way that things are being produced, right? And so that's really important. I think the aspects that I would leave is the idea of leadership. Um, I think from the point of view of a younger self, I think that should um, build itself up over the course of time um, in a natural way. Should never be forced. Should
Mhm.
never be forced to be a leader. No.
Great. What's a day in your life like?
Manic. Um, a mishmash of things, a collage of things, right?
Mm.
Um, I normally wake up exceedingly early. Um, Sometimes I find myself exceedingly restless with things. I start to potentially design things or take photographs or send images to designers, and then standard emails. Make sure the kids are ready for school with my wife, um, and then um, off to work and arrive at work around about 10:30. But I've been working since the morning, so that's a really weird term to use these days. Um, and then there's a large gamut of meetings, whether they're internal meetings that I'm going over different projects with my team designers or project managers and coordinators. Um, I try to manage the day, and then also with clients and presentations. I'm one person that tries to have a rule. It has been broken, not by myself, but by others, where I try to have presentations in the afternoon. Why? It's because I kind of want to ready myself. right? You want to be ready. And it's a rule of thumb, like try to have your presentations in the afternoon. A lot of people would, some people may say, no, I love to have a presentation, fresh because I'm fresh in the morning and I'm really tired in the afternoon. I always say, it's a little better. You can sort of tweak specific things, get other things done, and don't feel so stressed that the first minute in the morning that you are running around, that you have to actually deal with the presentation and then, um, you know, do other things. So I often make sure that that's the case as late as possible, if anything. And then I say to myself, "Oh, okay, I'm relieved. Now I can just go home." um, and I think that that sort of works out well. I'm not a designer that likes to work super late at night. As when I say super late at night, I mean I get exceedingly tired around about 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock, 11, 12. I start to, get the second wind and I can go till 3, 4 o'clock and then um and then I have to get some rest again. But that's the older you get, you can't really do that anymore.
Mm.
Yeah.
Great. Number 8 is around lifelong learning. It's a popular topic. How do you stay up to date?
Um I stay up to date through a myriad of things, talking with my partners, talking to my team and having conversations about that. Um, and you know, just reading articles. I'm more of an article reader than a book reader, but I do read books. And I think what we've lost is, I used to do this a lot, and if anybody who's listening here lives in New York or the New York area, there was a great bookstore called St. Mark's bookstore in St. Mark's Place. It's gone now for many years. I used to always wander over there um, normally after work, where I used to work at 2 by 4, and used to just walk a fairly long walk over to St. Mark's and sit there or stand there for at least an hour, just going through book after book after book, magazine after magazine after magazine. And there's not many places anymore that you can do that. And I'm not much of a wanderer through Instagram, and it's really you start to with Instagram, you start to look at it from an algorithmic sort of standpoint, right? It's the same stuff, right? Again and again and again. I mean, it might change trajectory, but then it pulls you into another channel which is exactly the same stuff. But there's no narrative to it. There's no written descriptors to proper written descriptors to it, to say the least. And I think that the aspects of critical thinking about specific concepts is lost. I think that that needs to come back into the aspects of our area of design um, in a bigger way. It doesn't have to be overly complex, but we've got things to say, and we're not saying them very clearly enough. I think um, we need to do that.
Great. 9 is about tools. Do you use both digital and analog tools?
Yes, I use a plethora of different tools. I'm fairly apt at this. I've sort of softened on the 3D tools. I used to use Cinema 4D fair amount, but because of my busy schedule, I don't. But I know the ins and outs of it. It has adjusted itself over the course of time. Um, Thereabouts, using other programs from aspects of, Photoshop, Illustrator more so than anything else. Figma, of course, and then getting into vibing, slowly but surely. My partner Jody um, Hudson Powell showed me what's it, respite. And I had utilized ChatGPT more so than anything else, but respite was actually is really really interesting. Um, and how you can sort of just produce code and then sort of input that code into the different programs of your choice, which is really fantastic. And just really try to experiment a little bit further in those particular areas would be, I would love to do that more and get more space to do that. Um, when it comes down to presentation tools, Canva definitely, and also Pitch. But I think with analog is really a sketchbook, but actually my sketchbook is digital. Um, it's a digital sketchbook, so that's a sort of strange thing. But anytime there's a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil anywhere, and I'm sitting or kneeling next to the designer, I'll scribble some things down and show them if I and also maybe because I don't have my digital sketch pad with me, I'll just find a scrap piece of paper, draw it up, take a photograph, and send it off to them.
Great. So work-life balance, life-work balance, how do you deal with it?
How does anybody deal with it? Um, I often say this, you know, you'll, you know, they're usually sort of apart, but now, because we work at home, I'm right now at home talking to you, um, that there is a total mingling, I think it's not so much about the space, but you need space to decompress, of course, and the try to have the ability to separate those out. So, we have a little place in Cape Cod that we, go up to sometimes in summer and also in other vacation times and try to relax then. But sometimes we're working and we do that. But there's so much to do, and there's so many sort of like beaches and ponds, which are lakes, fresh water that you can enjoy yourself or go biking. But to be absolutely honest, you know, I'm often ticking over with work ideas, but I don't look at it as work because graphic design has been it's been a hobby of mine. So I don't normally look at it work. I look at it from a work standpoint when you have to sort of write a proposal or figure out a schedule or look at a specific budget or your overhead structures and that type of thing, administrative elements, management elements, and that I think that's work. And when it comes down to design, I'm often, I just find it, enjoy it. Sometimes, you always put your music on and you sing along and you're doing your thing, and when you get in the groove, it's just life, and that's what you were put on this earth for. And that's how I sort of see things.
Love it. 11, if you weren't doing what you do now, what might you be doing?
Carpenter, or as a carpenter, my grandfather was a carpenter, and I often see things around me, and I often say, I'm not saying bettering it. No, that's not the point. I say I could do something like that. Um, which is different. Um, uh, and or an architect. Oh
Mhm.
no, also a builder. Um, just yeah.
Great. And what would you not like to do with your career?
Fuck it up.
What's your favorite word, quote, or sentence?
I don't really have one. Um, Um, well, actually I do, and I didn't know I did. Um, until I had a mentee tell me that I say this. And she created a badge, and she gave it to me, and she also gave badges to my team, and it basically said slow the fuck down. And I do say that a lot. I think we're in a rush. I'm always saying, why are you in a rush? And it says, well, because I've got to get this done now. I'm like, no, slow the fuck down. You're not really thinking it through. The quality is not there. You're just rushing it. So it could look aesthetically interesting, but is there any meaning behind it? Slow down. Slow down. Let's build this up. And I do find myself thinking about that a lot in regards to my life, as in work-life balance, is to slow the fuck down.
Do you have a least favorite word, quote, or sentence?
I feel strongly about this. Constantly a certain leader of the free world keeps saying that, and it's fucking annoying.
If you're choosing one word to describe yourself, what word do you choose?
Um, I want to be a craftsman. Yeah.
What what keeps you up at night?
Understanding that this our lives are can be considered quite finite.
Mm.
So when you lose someone that you that is in, has been important to you, that's a friend of yours, that's happened very recently, and that talent is gone, that friendship is gone, you start to think about finite elements of your life and how to make sure that you um, hold it dear. So your health, whether your mind, your body, and your soul, and also of your family, and also of your friends. I
Mm.
think um, don't use technology to communicate with your friends too much. You'll miss them too much. You need to see them physically, and it's really important, and you don't want to miss out on that.
Do you have a dream you're chasing?
Yeah. Like to keep that to myself.
Mm.
Um, I think I my father was a very pious man, and he always said that if you're it's not about you just going to church and meeting people in community. It's like you sort of kneeling down and just like meditating and focusing
Mm.
and keeping very private those things private. So I think I'm gonna keep that sense of dream private because I know it's gonna happen one day.
Great. And last few here, what inspires you?
Well, not to be soppy in any which way, but my wife, I love immensely does inspire me. Love having conversations with her, ever since I met her. Um, and uh, even though she might not say anything, and I'm just blabbering on, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see how and where this can go, um, in my mind. So I feel as though that's definitely inspiring. I think it's what's inspiring is also when I see really young talent that's just bursting
Mm.
with energy, and that's really great. And so walking the aisles, the channels downstairs at Pentagram and just walking past great stuff. You're like, whoa, what is that? You gotta pick it up, Eddie, and I think that's really fantastic. There's a collegiate element at Pentagram that really enables me to feel more engaged, more to be imbued with a sense of dynamics and be inspired on a week to week, day to day, month to month, year to year basis. And I like that. And there are other studios that I've been to like that as well, like some 2x4 and Imaginary Forces. It's really great. I'm very thankful I worked in those studios.
Great. So number 19, advice. Any advice you'd like to share?
Um, yeah. As I said, you know, from the very beginning, don't don't really look at something as a problem, right? Try to open it up, try to reform, look at it from a transformational sort of standpoint. I don't use that word loosely or in a trend type of manner, like potentially others have. Um, Look at how you can build expressive and living systems. Collaborate with more so um, designers of in other areas, right? And creatives in other areas. I think it's so important. Um, Question the brief that the client has given you, not um, in a in a critical not through the aspects of criticism, but like just question it in your mind and how can you reframe it in a way that it has more clarity. And that's a really important thing that you should try to do often enough. Um, because that's your point of view. That's a starting point, right? Um, Slow down, right? Slow down, think, be far more conceptual than you ever even thought of being, right? And uh, and the end results will come. I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Great. And finally, number 20, how can our listeners keep tabs on you and what's our call to action today?
Um, you can find my work Pentagram. Um, I'm not really on Instagram at all. I am on LinkedIn. I do often give lectures throughout the year, and they're normally posted um, on Pentagram or in LinkedIn. And yeah, that's how you can find me. Um, yeah,
Great. Well, such an honor having you on today. Thank you so much for joining.
thank you, Thomas, and thank you for having me.